Welcome everyone to Unit 1 of Introductory Horticulture. This is going to be for Horticulture 101. Today we're going to talk about exploring the horticulture field. We're going to talk about potential jobs and other opportunities within the horticultural field and give you a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to learn here this semester. So the word horticulture comes from the Latin word meaning garden cultivation. And it has evolved into many different things. So there's floriculture and ornamental horticulture, and this is still keenly related to agriculture. So there's many different things that are part of the horticultural industry, and you can take the knowledge you learn here and apply it to many different applications and not just utilizing the word horticulture. Um, there's also seed production and trees and nurseries. There's a lot of occupations and careers that you can get into in this field, and it's not limited to being a gardener or someone who mows lawns. There's a lot of great careers, and you're going to see some of those right now. So to start off, some of those jobs in the horticultural field is you have greenhouse employees. A greenhouse is basically a controlled environment where plants can grow throughout the year. This is going to be used in colder climates to maintain tropical style or certain evergreen style plants, allowing them to continue to prosper even when it's very cold outside. Greenhouses are also used primarily for seed starting and nursery production to help those those plants start when it's still cold outside and allow those seeds to germinate. Next, we're going to go on to a nursery employee, and this is someone who grows plants to be sold as plants, not necessarily for their fruit or the leaves, but this is going to be the person who works where they grow the plants. And going back to the greenhouse employee, many times those greenhouse employees will also be working at a nursery. So those are not independent of each other, but they are going to be very, very similar. These nursery employees are going to likely deliver plants. They're likely to load these plants, deliver them, propagate them, plant, replant, put them into bigger pots. There's a lot of things that a nursery employee will need to do. Next, we have a garden center employee, and I say this would probably be related to those who work at Home Depot or Lowe's, but there are other avenues. You have Armstrongs, you have Osh, you have other areas where these garden center employees would be working. A lot of people don't give them a ton of credit. Uh, I've gone to Home Depot and I've gone to Lowe's and I've asked these garden center employees questions, and they've had a hard time answering them for me. I could be asking harder questions just due to my background, but it is definitely a challenging issue to sometimes get information out of them. Um, these employees aren't given a ton of training, so that's why you get frustrated at times. So, but just understand that this is another job, and if you do have a bit of training, this is something that will put you above someone else. You can utilize your horticultural training to maybe get you that job at Lowe's or Home Depot and have the staying power because you have the extra knowledge. Uh, okay, a grounds maintenance employee, and I'm going to give you a few examples of me while we're going through this because I worked at several different jobs in this field, and actually when I first started I was a grounds maintenance employee. I dug 3,286 holes my first year in the golf course industry. And the reason I know how many holes I dug was because that's how many irrigation heads that I changed on a golf course. We were converting to from an older irrigation system to a more modern irrigation system, and we had to change all of the irrigation heads. And in order to do this, we had to dig them up, we had to replace them, we had to change all the different internal parts of the irrigation system, swing arms, fittings, and then reinstall the new heads onto the system and ensure that they were working properly. So I was digging quite a few holes a day trying to get this done. So, and then moving right into a golf course employee. So now these are going to be very similarly related employees. Grounds maintenance and golf courses are going to need to operate equipment. They're going to need to operate both ride-on and hand equipment. So those hand equipments are going to be your chainsaws, your weed eaters, blowers, anything that's going to take to create the space that is needed. Grounds maintenance may do more cleanup stuff where they're around apartment buildings or parks or even cemeteries. There's going to be these grounds maintenance and golf course employees needed everywhere. The golf course I most recently worked at was the Silver Lakes Country Club. This golf course had approximately 30 to 35 employees, and they were all considered grounds maintenance or golf course employees. City, state, or national park employee. I'm not going to say that I worked for a city, state, or a national park, but I do understand a lot of the things that they do. Some of these are going to be maintenance of these parks or restoration of these parks. This is going to be somebody who is an equipment operator, someone who is going to need to know how to plant trees, how to fix plumbing, how to be sort of a jack of all trades, do a little bit of everything all um, around the park, and just kind of have an understanding of what's going on. Oh, an agricultural educator. So this is definitely somebody like me up here teaching in front of you, and there's no stopping anyone from being an educator. If you have the knowledge, you have the experience. When I first started teaching here at the college, I was I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I actually had an associate's degree. But what set me apart was I had about 15 years of experience doing the jobs that you guys needed to understand. So I had hands-on knowledge and an understanding of the programs, the projects, the equipment, and that's what makes a good educator. Not necessarily having the book knowledge, but having the hands-on or the experience to be able to talk to people and explain to them how this stuff actually works. It's not the same as it is in a book. It is definitely different. Books can give you as much information as possible, but when you get out in the field, it doesn't always work that way. Nature tends to have a way of surprising you. When you think you know something, you don't. Now, I do say that I had an associate's degree, but it is typically a job like this will need a bachelor's degree. And oftentimes, if you're being an educator at like a high school, you will need to be a state accredited teacher as well. So sometimes you even need to have a master's degree in those situations. So there are many colleges and even local colleges beyond Mount San Jacinto that offer programs. So I'm not going to discriminate against other community colleges. If you feel like you have to get more information, not only do we have a horticulture program, but Mount SAC has one. That's Mount San Antonio College. Um, Kiomaka College down in San Diego has a good one. Victor Valley College in the high desert has a good one. There's education to be had around the Southern California area. So look for what you need to. And then moving on to, good 4-year schools would be Cal Poly, either Pomona or San Luis Obispo. UC Riverside has a huge agricultural program, and actually, they're the Southern California Agricultural and Natural Resource Extension. So they really do a lot and have a lot of opportunities for education as well as post-education work. Um, at at UC Riverside, they do a lot of research projects and do a lot of work. This is definitely not a list of all of them locally, but just kind of a few that are more stand out more. And then honestly, look at online schools. So Penn State has something called the World Campus, and you can take classes anywhere in the world, and they are just as good as if you took them in the college. And the degree you get at the end, it does not discriminate. Nobody would know that you did not go to school at Penn State in Pennsylvania. So those are tons of things for colleges, and you can kind of write your own ticket at that point. Whatever it is that you feel like you want to do, you can tailor your education to get you more experience in those areas. So something you want to consider is you know, is it going to challenge you? What are the duties? Do you have the physical ability to do them? Do you have the skills? What skills can you learn? And then you want to make sure that something you want to do has a lot of jobs in that field. I talked about golf course industry, and there's hundreds of golf courses in the Southern California area, and even if you averaged 15 at each golf course, that's thousands of jobs that are available for people to have. And that's just golf courses. That doesn't include parks. That doesn't include the cities, sports fields. There's cemeteries. There's a lot of jobs to be had in the horticultural market. So when you start to look at this, you want to start to like understand how the future will look in the horticulture industry. There are going to be more demand. These aren't jobs that can be outsourced, so you can't send these jobs overseas to be had by someone who's not in America or who's not present. Um, there's people who are going to be changing landscapes because of laws as Sacramento or whatever government agency decides they want to make more stringent regulations. More and more things are going to need to be changed to meet those regulations. So there's going to be work here in these fields for the future. Um, there's going to be work for cities and parks, golf courses. All these things are going to be fluid and changing and need to be upgraded. There's always a new technology coming out that needs to be installed. Always really good to, I like the word they use here, market yourself. And that's, understanding how you can get involved with professional associations or finding certificates that can help you get better and show that you have knowledge in the industry. Some of the ones that I belong to are the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, or the GCSAA. I also belong to the Sports Turf Managers Association, or STMA. Some of the other ones in California here are the California Landscape Contractors Association. There's a ton of them, and all of them offer different certificates so that you can uh, be more well-rounded and have more information. Um, one thing I've always liked to tell people, and it's kind of a weird cliche, but the more pieces of paper you have with your name on it that says you know something, the more valuable you are to people. And if two people have similar experiences and you have that extra piece of paper that has a name on it, then you are more valuable to the employer than the person who does not have that piece of paper. So keep that in mind. Keep moving. So I'm not going to talk too much about this, but make sure you have a good resume. I've round filed plenty of resumes because they have a silly email address. Uh, I'm not going to yell out the ones that I've seen, but obviously you don't want to have ones that don't include your name or are what's your favorite things. You don't want to include those types of things. Have something very generic for job searching. I use just my name, my first and last name, and then I've made my own just Gmail account for job searching. You want to make sure you include all your work experience, your career objectives, when you can work, all the experience you have. Even if it's not necessarily experience in the horticultural industry, it's good to include other experiences because that way your employer will see that you're well-rounded. I've actually hired people who have had no experience in the horticultural industry but had similar jobs or showed that they were just a good employee and could do what they needed to do. Okay, so job interview, the best thing I can say here is to practice, practice, practice. Think about questions that may be asked of you. There's tons of forums online that show job interview questions. Uh, this is not everybody can interview well. Best thing that I can do is say, try to find a job when you already have a job. It's so much easier to go into a job interview without the pressure of, boy, oh boy, I really need this job. I really need this job. The best interviews I've ever had where when I was trying to move from one location to another, but still was secure in my first job. And I know that's not always the case, but it does feel a lot better to have something just in case. And that way you can relax a little bit while you're in the interview. So you can read these, don't control the meeting, let the questions come to you. You always want to ask a question when you leave. Make sure that they know you're paying attention. Look at their website or do a little bit of research about the place you're going to work. They might ask you about some trouble problem and you've looked it up on their website and you're like, oh, I've dealt with that before. And then you're not hit cold with it and you kind of have an understanding. And then something you can do is ask a question like, can you explain how you are handling this situation? You don't want to get too pretentious when you do this, but definitely having some sort of a information that you can shoot back at them to show that you're like willing and are doing research even when you're not getting paid to do it. It's always a plus. Okay, these are all pretty self-explanatory. Wear clean clothes, be early, don't chew gum, don't smoke, yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to keep going, but these are all things that you can look up online. Make eye contact, yada, yada, yada. Again, job interview stuff. This is everywhere, so I don't want to dwell on this and make you guys sit through a long lecture about this. So in summary, the horticultural industry is big, it's growing, it's dynamic, there's tons of different things to do. It's really easy to move from one spot to another. The experience does carry over. Being a good equipment operator is definitely something that everybody needs, so it's really not a big deal. This is very, very a brief overview, did not include a lot of the jobs that are out there. So get out there, look around, find what you need to find, and you'll do fine. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll see you next time.